Go live
manufacturers joining
button
in from a
now.
night shift. Enjoy this little breakaway and thank you for joining us. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Harun Maritz. I'm head of product solutions here at Syspro. And today we're going to be diving into the very heart of modern manufacturing. Now, I'm thrilled to open this session today as we've brought together some truly sharp minds, including the leading expert from Frost & Sullivan and three fantastic guest speakers, each with their own backstage pass to the chaos and absolute brilliance that comes with complex manufacturing. Hendrik joins us as the managing partner and CEO of Frost & Sullivan, who completed the study, and he will be leading the discussion today. Mario is the software development manager at GRW in South Africa, a leading transport equipment designer, manufacturer, and service provider that delivers a wide range of quality and state-of-the-art tankers and trailers. Mark, who is the business systems director at Orthoplastics right here in the UK, a leader in the medical industry and a world leader in the development and supply of both implantable grade plastics and biocompatible plastics for instrument applications. Unfortunately, Matthew, the CIO at Lang's Building Supplies in Australia, could not join us today. Now, we all know that manufacturers today are juggling a lot, whether it's parts that don't show up, systems that don't talk to one another, or that very formal and structured process that somehow needs to incorporate the but sometimes scenario. Now, this in addition to adhering to the ever-changing and very complex regulatory requirements. According to Frost & Sullivan's latest research, which we will be unpacking today, the industry is evolving much faster than the budgets can keep up. Yet, there's a tremendous opportunity for those who can harness the smarter tech, who can streamline the business processes and operations while not losing any sleep over the latest ERP update. So wherever you are in the world today, sit back, buckle up, as we're going to explore the emerging trends, practical strategies, and yes, I'm sure even a few battle scars as we look at how real manufacturers are navigating this high stakes battling act. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Hendrik.
Brilliant, Herman. Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Let me just get our lovely presentation up and running. Brilliant. So thank you very much for all the introductions. So I don't have to do that in any shape or form. Right. So today's conversation is really built on the findings of Syspro's latest research, conducted in collaboration with my firm, Frost & Sullivan, which provides an in-depth look at the trends and the challenges shaping the future of complex manufacturing, which is not an easy task in any shape or form, right? Given everything that Herman has mentioned. Now, we talk about rapid technological advancement, supply chain disruptions involving customer expectations, sort of the increased pressures on sustainability, et cetera, and it all essentially means that manufacturers are facing an unprecedented level of complexity in their business. Now, the study that we conducted really it aims to offer some valuable insights into how industry leaders are responding, and themes that the study covers essentially around sort of balancing digital transformation on the one side with workforce integration, navigating operational hurdles, rethinking long-term strategies in line with Industry 5.0 principles, et cetera. And if you want to get hold of the study, so we'll make the link available to you a bit later, and then we'll work through, or you can work through some of the outputs in your own time. But our goal today is really to unpack some of these insights with some real-world perspectives, from Syspro's clients. So, giving you some practical takeaways, hopefully today, on how to stay competitive and then also resilient in this very much evolving landscape. Now, just a bit of background, to the study. Just taking a look at the approach and methodology. Won't spend too much time on this, but Frost & Sullivan took a structured and iterative approach to the study, meaning that we essentially learned through some of the output as we went along with the study, just to maximize some of the insights. The study did integrate a combination of primary and secondary research, which is really important in cases like this, because what's happening necessarily on paper is not necessarily always what happens in practice, as we'll most likely hear today from our panelists. And it was a real privilege, I think, to speak to executives from across the globe. So we did in-depth interviews, extracting probably about 300 data points through some of those discussions. We did a formalized survey, extracting another sort of almost 300 data points from that, and then we combined that with some of the existing secondary research, where we felt we could access repeatable reports, including some of the insights from Frost and Sullivan's market intelligence database. And then all of that is formally referenced in the document for your convenience. So if you want to read a bit more on particular topics or themes, you can just click on some of those links, and then we can move forward. Right. So for our agenda for the discussion today, we'll be focusing the conversation on 4 key themes. So firstly, how Industry 5.0 is shaping the future of complex manufacturing. Is it hype? Is it another buzzword we need to file somewhere, or does it have real value for how we evaluate technology and technology investment? The second theme is around key trends shaping smart technology adoption in complex manufacturing, and the report also takes sort of quite a few angles in the way that it looks at technologies that are having an influence on the industry on the one side, what are companies investing in on the other, and the level of influence that it has on complex manufacturing. Thirdly, we'll take a look at some of the implementation challenges, and I think there's a lot of insight that we can generate from our panel members today, specifically on how they've mitigated that. And then we'll end off with a bit of a future outlook from our panelists, taking a look at how they see the future of advanced manufacturing from a technology perspective and beyond. Right, so the first theme, Industry 5.0, is important to establish why this is so important to understand and consider for decision making. Now, the definition of Industry 5.0 really revolves around the fact that it's the next transformative phase in manufacturing, right? So it emphasizes that human machine collaboration, leveraging advanced technologies like AI and IoT, in conjunction with human intelligence to enable a better outcome. So resulting hopefully in enhanced productivity, deliver customized scale.
Excuse me, Hendrik. Sorry to interrupt you. We're still on the first slide there.
Goodness, mine has moved on. Let me stop sharing and see if we can get PowerPoint to actually play along. All right, let's have a look here. Share that window. Right, the presentation is up that I can see. Okay, let me go presentation mode because I can't actually see if the slides are moving along if I'm in presentation mode. Right, so if I move forward, does it move forward?
No, the page has not moved.
Okay, goodness. Always some little technical issue that we've got to try to address, right? So I tell you what, how about I do the following? How about I share the screen as opposed to the window? Maybe that works for us. All right, I can see that popping up. Yeah, if I move back to Industry 5.0, does it move with me? Brilliant.
Yes, it moves with you.
Perfect. Thanks for picking that up, Kelly. All right, so just interrupt me if for some reason it does the same little glitch, and then we can just restart the show. All right, so where were we? So we were talking about Industry 5.0. We were talking about the relevant Industry 5.0, so the definition thereof, so resulting hopefully in productivity and increased levels of mass customization, sustainability. So Industry 4.0 has an emphasis on technology adoption and deployment. 5.0 will focus on striking a better balance between humans and machines, and hence there's an emphasis on things like cobots to make decisions, etc., etc. So it's very much a value-centric approach as opposed to a technology-centric approach, which is critical given the hype around technology in general at present. It's very difficult sometimes to distinguish between sort of what are the things that we should be paying attention to, so what is real and what is as advanced as people are trying to make it look like, and sort of what is just hype, what is just general speak. I mean, if you think back back in the day of cloud technology, we were talking about cloud for a good 10, 12 years before we saw significant updates or uptake rather in cloud. And it's the same with things like artificial intelligence, which we'll see as part of the research. So the importance of 5.0, just before we get into the panel discussion, is it's the context within which future technology investments need to be evaluated with them. So when we look at technology evaluations for tech investment, we take a look at projected technology roadmaps, so patents being registered, R&D lab focus areas, academic papers, VC investments, and it allows us essentially to eliminate the risk of being disintermediated by some other technology during the productive life cycle of the asset. Now, the challenge, though, is that is becoming increasingly difficult to do given the pace of change. So we've reverted to a methodology where we take a look at Industry 5.0 and all the research around it, and that provides an additional layer or an additional level of perspective that we can use in order to evaluate any kind of technological investment that we need to make, and evaluation framework, so to speak, for when our investments will come to fruition. And hence it's important, when we talk about these trends. Now, turning to our panel members, so Mario, so you're first up. So my first question to you is, are you seeing this shift, to the human tech collaboration already, or is this something that you keeping tabs on? Is it on your horizon? Give us your thoughts on that human tech collaboration trend.
Hi. Yes, there's a significant and growing shift towards human and technology collaboration across industries. Rather than replacing humans, technology is increasingly being designed to augment human capabilities, create synergies where each complement the other's strengths. Key trends that support this shift is augmentation over replacement. For example, GitHub Copilot, Microsoft 365, all of them assist professionals without eliminating jobs.
I mean, and I guess that's sort of that final part is quite important to emphasize the fact that, we have not seen a reduction in the level of employment necessarily based on any technological development over the past 30, 40, 50 years. There are certain types of skills that become irrelevant, but typically it does lead to a broader base of employment. And I think given where Industry 5.0 is heading, we need to focus on how do we foster some of that collaboration element sort of between humans and between machines to be able to, as you mentioned, augment our decision making, as opposed to just circumventing the human factor, which at this stage and for the foreseeable future is not really an option. Mark, from your side, you obviously operate, from the UK, so we didn't sort of mention where everybody was from, but Mario is sitting in South Africa. Sort of Mark is sitting in the UK. Matthew would have been from Australia, but unfortunately he can't make it this morning. But from your side, Mark, how does sustainability factor in your strategy at the moment? There's obviously a big push towards sustainability as one of the key pillars, I guess, of Industry 5.0 as well. But how does sustainability factor in your strategy?
In the UK, what we've done here to keep sustainability is like Mario said, we're not losing people. What we're doing, the business is growing, but we're not employing people. Our business has probably, I would say, quadrupled. We've gone from like 20 million ever since we first started it to turning over 140 million. And we do not, the sustainability is because we have that integration of 5 helping us get through it and not having to take more people on. The only people we take on now is probably on the shop floor for the machines, but everything talks from sustainability wise. We it's really is taking off in our industry.
Brilliant. And I mean, just to kind of add to some of those insights from Mario and from Mark, I do the vast majority of my work in sub-Saharan Africa, so it's very much developing world, and we often need to look at developing world applications, for some of these advanced technologies. Now, augmented reality and virtual reality, I always, see as a great training and reskilling tool for the region. A lot of people are concerned about the fact that Africa's workforce is very young, median age being, I think, just over 18 years old, compared to, 45 in Japan, et cetera, but there's a skill issue. Now, we can use a lot of these technologies for reskilling, so combining, say, for instance, augmented and virtual reality with something like natural language recognition. You can bring a lot of the unskilled into the digitally sort of literate sort of domain in order to be able to manufacture whatever you need to manufacture, as opposed to users looking for skills overseas or then sort of locating factories overseas necessarily. So there are a lot of options, I think, in order to bring that workforce sort of into Industry 5.0, by leveraging the technologies associated with it. Right, so taking a look at some of the trends that are shaping so the complex manufacturing sector. So Kelly, just confirm that the slide moved to the next slide, just to make sure that we're not stuck on the previous one again. Brilliant,
Yes, I can
awesome,
see a
thank
trend.
you for confirming. So these are trends respondents confirmed which are shaping the sector. Now, it's important to note that this is not a reflection of their investment priorities at present. That's a bit later in the document, but the Syspro report outlines 6 major trends influencing the direction of complex manufacturing. Emerging smart technologies is one, so accelerated adoption specifically of technologies like artificial intelligence, robotics, industrial IoT, etc. Investing in sustainability, so integrating ESG goals into core strategy. And what is very interesting is that a lot of the ECG priorities, for companies are not necessarily, things that just cost money, but on the contrary, it actually saves money. So a lot of it focuses on efficiency. So for instance, with advanced manufacturing was a really interesting conversation around, investment in sustainability. And there's always the red flag that pops up again, and that's additional cost and there's regulation, etc. And there is an element of that, but there's also an element of cost saving. Evolving government policies, so adapting to increasing regulation and incentives. Global trade disruptions, which we've already mentioned, so prompting localized and resilient supply chains. Workforce demographics specifically related to general shifts and digital skills gap, which we've spoken about. And then also customer expectations for personalization, so the rise of demand for high volume, custom and high quality output. So these are some of the trends, that the respondents felt were shaping the complex manufacturing sector, for the foreseeable future. So Mario, sort of back to you. Which of the trends that you can see on the screen are most shaping your strategy today?
I would say all 6 are significantly shaping business strategy today, but their relative importance depends on your industry, geography, and organizational priorities. For me, the trend that is most shaping strategy today is emerging smart technologies. It's AI, robotics, and IoT. And it matters because AI and automation is revolutionizing efficiency, like example, predictive maintenance, hyper-personalization. IoT enables real-time data-driven decision-making in manufacturing and logistics. The key takeaway for this is the most transformative strategies integrate multiple trends. For example, a manufacturer might combine IoT with localized supply chains and green production to future-proof operations.
Mm-hmm. Great. And then, Mark, from your side, we always hear about the European regulations increasing all the time and providing quite a lot of pressure on manufacturing institutions, but other businesses, I guess, as well. So how are you navigating external pressures like regulation and trade uncertainty, as part of your strategy?
Yeah, trade uncertainty, as you all know, with the American market at the moment, and I think 60-70% of our business is in America. The way we're negotiating it through, we do have landed cost tracking, so that's part of it. But we've actually had to change our negotiations for most of our customers to go ex works because it's so volatile at the moment. And you can see even Jaguar Land Rover, they've stopped trading with America for a month until it's all the political landscape has actually calmed down. So at this moment it is quite difficult, but we do have the technologies to help us with the software. And it's like Mario said, the IoT stuff where it's all integrated, it's starting to help us because we've got the supplier and customer links, that just makes it a lot easier for us. The difficulty is because it's changing every 30 days when, with the political landscape. So at the moment, we're holding fast just to see, because we don't know what's coming in the next 30 days or whatever. So we're having to do it, review it with regular.
Yeah, regular intervals. I mean, one of the interesting things, so just thinking back of sort of on the Brexit days, which obviously introduced quite a lot of trade uncertainty as well for the UK in particular for a long period of time. And one of the things that Frost Sullivan did back in the day was to, as opposed to trying to predict what the outcome was going to be, which was a futile exercise, at that point in time, because, you obviously had a whole range of outcomes quite similar to what we are facing today. We developed specific scenarios, and then we enabled the organization to try to respond to those scenarios depending on which one pans out. So as opposed to trying to predict, what the outcome was going to be, rather prepare the organization depending on, different types of outcome, of sort of the referendum, and then obviously sort of some of the trade negotiations between the EU and the UK at that stage, which was a much more tangible exercise to go through in order to be able to address uncertainty, as opposed to, again, trying to predict the future, which, given the fact that a lot of the decision aren't necessarily commercially driven but politically driven, it becomes extremely difficult to determine the outcomes. So this was going to be one of the questions that I was going to pose to Matthew. So I thought I might pose it to both of you. And it's around the alignment of smart technology adoption with customer demand. So are you utilizing any of these technological advancements and developments in order to align better, with the customer demand? We're seeing a lot of focus areas, obviously, on the manufacturing itself, sort of the monitoring and the efficiency components, et cetera, and adjusting to different regulation and all of that. But from a customer alignment perspective, are there things that you are utilizing, or technology that are utilizing in order to align better with your customers? Mario, Mark, anyone who's ready, if you can comment on that.
Yeah, we use the APIs to do everything automatically that comes in, which means we've got better communications with our customers. So we'll send everything out electronically, from the dispatch notes, the advanced shipping notes, to the invoices. We take all the orders in that way. So technology wise, we're using it quite heavily. The only thing we do have a problem is, like you said, when we hit Brexit, things do take longer to come in because they're held at customs. So again, it's just how you manage it and put it into perspective of what you put in on your lead times. As long as you know what's coming in the future, automatic customer orders are coming in. So we have we've written something called, which is a SIOP, which is sales inventory and optimization planning. So we know straight away what's coming in, and that's what we do. It's virtually automatic, so it's quite good.
Right, so they're streamlining the communication element.
Yeah.
And Mario, Ben, I know that sort of you guys recently sort of moved over onto the system Syspro platform. So I guess some of it will be still a bit new. But are you utilizing technology at this stage in order to communicate with customers?
Not with customers at the moment, because it's still pretty new, and migrating from a custom-built ERP system to Syspro does take some time and some planning. So we're in the initial stages of getting everything up and running. But like Mark said, we are utilizing APIs and the E.net solution to communicate with Syspro from other sources, and this can be from clients or from suppliers or from machines. So yeah, we are utilizing that to leverage some more potential out of the system.
Yeah.
Right.
What he's saying, we use the business objects a lot to communicate with all our third-party systems. That's from rotomats on the shop floor to machines, turning machines, milling machines, all the business objects. It'll pull the information out. We can read it in the APIs. the business object side of it, it makes it so easy for us to do.
Brilliant. And that kind of gets us to, the next part of the discussion, focusing on some of the emerging sort of smart technologies that we uncovered during the survey. And not surprisingly, I guess 58% recognized industrial IoT and artificial intelligence, as most promising. So on the left-hand side of the slide, you can see the what technologies, but maybe equally important, and as our conversation sort of turned to it sort of just now as well, it's to understand how they are being implemented via ERP solutions to drive sort of business objectives. Now, interestingly, our study showed that about 57% of companies have partially implemented new technologies only, with another 40% using sort of POCs at present. So fully implemented and live examples were extremely hard to find during the survey process. And therefore, from an investment perspective, it's important to understand that artificial intelligence, etc., is very much in exploratory phase still at present for the vast majority of companies. We're seeing a lot of talk about it, a lot of hype around. If you take a look at the amount of financial statement releases from some of the listed companies, the word artificial intelligence is being splattered over each and every single aspect of their business. But once you start getting into the nuts and bolts of it, a very small amount of organizations have actually implemented at enterprise level, up until this point. And again, sort of the example of cloud, we're talking about AI, but we're not necessarily implementing it across the organization. And the main reason that we picked up was really around the fact that value creation ability of AI is often still uncertain, depending on whatever application you're trying to drive. And it's still quite expensive, although I guess China might sort that out for us in the short to medium term. But it's still relatively expensive, to implement. Now, Mario, I mean, from your perspective, and I know again, sort of, you guys have made quite a lot of shifts of late, but what technologies have you adopted, and what drove those decisions specifically, sort of at strategic decision making level?
In the past, we had a custom ERP system, and from that we built our website, and from that we did an Android application to hand to the pickers in the warehouse. We did some QR codes for all the parts that came out of the laser cutters, and each location in the store for your warehouse management system. This improved warehouse picking and supply to the line quite drastically, where the guys who pick have the list on the phone to see exactly what they should pick, where to get it, and they just finish the list for the day, and then as soon as the list is finished, they know that they can go home. But we have implemented mobile devices with QR code scanning, robots which perform repetitive tasks, real-time feedback from robots to make data-driven decisions. And then something we looked at but did not implement yet was to use AR glasses for picking, where the warehouse pickers would only wear the glasses, leaving both hands free, and using AI to generate the most efficient picking routes. The glasses then also scans the QR codes in real time to show exactly what bin to pick from. But that was still in planning phase, and some of the restrictions like costs and time is always a factor that hampers this. So we moved on to something else, but that is maybe still in the pipeline. And what drove those decisions was mostly efficiency. To be more efficient at what we do, in order to scale up production, we have to constantly reinvent ourselves.
So many toys at all time, right? Mark, on your side, I mean, I know that you are quite advanced with your. You moved over to the Syspro system, I think, quite a long period of time ago, and you've also done quite a lot of upgrading of legacy systems. Are there particular technologies that you've adopted? Can you maybe give us a bit of an indication of how those decisions were made as well?
The business grows, and even though we are, I would say, a well-established part of Syspro companies, we've actually upgraded about 3 times, and I had no problem with the business objects. We currently put 35,000 jobs through the shop floor, and all that picking and it all goes through what's called rotomat. So all the jobs are on a rotomat. It controls it automatically, all the AI technology. So if you think about the amount of jobs going through a shop floor, 35,000 is a lot of jobs, because it's a lot of knees and hips we're making. So technology is important to us, because we don't want the admin. We want to make it easy for the people on the shop floor. So we've got rotomats. We've got automatic, where they can look at anything on the shop floor. They can look at setup sheets. They can look up the drawings, everything. So we are using all that technology, and all that, because Syspro is so good with the business objects and everything, is we can just upgrade it. So we are a steady manufacturing. But remember, businesses always change, and you've got to go with what the new technology is. So my job is not just to sit here and say it's implemented. It's to go and look at what that new technology is and try improve the process flows. So we do look at it all the time of what's coming out.
And I mean, and how do you measure return on investment? And it's a bit of a loaded question, because quite often, and I've heard this so many times in boardrooms, where the answer is we need to evaluate technology in a different way to any other investment. So whether it be capital investment or other kinds of operational expenditure, technology sometimes got this, I don't know, the separate bucket or the separate category and the way that decisions get made. But how do you measure return on investment for any new technology investment that you're looking at?
You see, in our industry, I'm very, very, very lucky. Is that I've got a board who actually support me with new technologies. If there's anything out there that I need, they will support me. There are returns on investment, but as long as it'll create me capacity on the shop floor, as long as I save people. For a company this size, we've got one person in accounts payable, one person in accounts receivable, and the turnover is 140 million. And that's all because we're using technology. We use scanners to scan the invoices in. Automatically, you use the business objects to pay them and match them to GRNs. So as long as it's there and they see a saving, and the business is still growing, and we're not taking the indirects on, then they're happy. That's what they look at.
I guess you're quite fortunate in that sort of, you mentioned that your board is quite technology savvy, or at least pro technology. I think as part of all the discussions, there's no excuse these days to have somebody on your executive committee or on the board of directors, for that matter, who does not have a good understanding of technology, who is not necessarily a techie by definition. So they don't necessarily have a technology background or education around, but they have an understanding of how technology can add value. I mean, one of the key things that we always look at when we are evaluating new technology is, number one, identifying the main value associated with implementing it, and that needs to fall into one of 3 categories. And you mentioned the first one, which is obviously cost reduction. You need to have a very strong relationship between your understanding of the capital investment on the one side, the operating expenditure, and the cost reduction that will produce. Revenue generation, number 2, and number 3, customer experience. To the extent where you can measure the reduced level of churn associated with customers based on that technology application. So that return on investment conversation really revolves around understanding that relationship extremely well, and also not getting caught in discussions like, oh, we can do this, but it can also do that. And, if you apply it in this particular way, it can do something different, which is extremely challenging for commercially focused board members, to then ultimately make a decision, or for management committee members. And then a question again, sort of for both of you, how has this changed workforce dynamics, if at all? So, Mark, you mentioned the fact that, I mean, despite the fact that you're a very sizable organization, obviously you only you've only got a handful of individuals in what would be termed administrative functions, so administrative and finance functions. Have you seen any other workforce dynamics change as a result of taking on board some of these technologies?
I think Mario actually put it thing is you are struggling to get people on the shop floor nowadays. But remember, when anybody joins a business now, they're used to having a mobile phone. So they're used to technology. In the old days, you had to you had to teach them to go through it, but they're used to it nowadays. It's benefited people on the shop floor because it makes their life easier, because the communication side of it is really important, and because they have mobile phones, it is a big computer. It's £1,000 computer that sits in the hand every day, and so they're used to that technology. And that sometimes they'll come to me and go, why does it not do that? Why does it not? I can do that there. So we then go back and we think, we want to look at the user experience for them as well. So it's important to go and talk to the people and see what they want from a user experience. I don't know if that's what Mario's found as well when he's been doing it.
Yes, exactly the same. As soon as we released the mobile application and showed, obviously we had resistance to change, and people don't want to change because they're used to doing it in a certain way. But as soon as they realize that this is actually there to make their life easier, it's like a light bulb went on, and we opened a channel back in the day just for new requests, where people can tell us what do they think will make their life even more easier by adding to this. So every new update that came out was actually embraced, instead of it's a new update.
Interesting, eh?
Yeah, but what I give them a win, and once they see the win, they buy in, so we don't get that resistance to change. They then start coming to me. So if you give them a nice little win, first of all, the resistance is there. Yeah, you give them that little win, and then they'll start coming back with what they, that for their user experience to make it easier. And it is breaking that first element of giving them something to get that resistance, which is what Mario said.
Yeah, I think why it matters is that the future isn't humans or technology, it's humans and technology. And the most successful organizations will be those that leverage technology to amplify human potential while addressing challenges like reskilling and sustainability. People are afraid that AI will replace them. It's not the case. AI is actually just a tool. It's something to help them to repeat repetitive tasks and to free up your resources, your humans, to do things that they are supposed better at than robots or machines. And it's decision making, it's empathy, or all those kinds of human skills that you can't teach a robot.
And I mean, it's just sort of referring, Mark, back to your comment around the fact that a very large proportion of individuals, obviously, you've got it, even in a developing country like South Africa, where Mario is based, smartphone penetration is pretty decent. So, I mean, you are interacting with quite a complex device, sort of that user interface is quite similar, for a number of other technology applications. So it already prepares individuals, despite the fact that they might not have extensive technology exposure leading up to the point that they might join you as part of your workforce. There's intuitively, a set of skills that's already there off the back of some of the smartphone penetration and interaction, which is great. And it kind of leads us quite nicely into kind of the next conversation, which is around the barriers to implementing advanced technologies. And both of you have alluded to some of the things that you've done in order to breach that gap and address some of the angst and the resistance to change. But taking a look at some of the challenges, 25% said cost, 22% resistance to change, 19% expertise, 43% said integration with legacy systems, and then 43% and 48% said cybersecurity concerns. Now, these challenges are clearly both a combination of technical challenge on the one side, but cultural as well within the realm of Industry 5.0. I mean, on the cybersecurity side, I think it was the IBM report that came out last year that said that the average cost of a security breach of an enterprise level organization, about $5 million US per breach last year. And the total amount that cybercrime is costing us globally is around the 10 trillion mark in 2024. I mean, that's roughly the size of the German economy. So it's immense in the magnitude of the challenges that we that we face. So Mario, I mean, from your perspective, I mean, you guys have moved quite recently over to the ERP platform. So what implementation barriers that you face, and how did you specifically handle sort of the internal resistance associated with that?
Challenges, cost and integration with legacy systems are definitely on the list. But mostly I would say it was resistance to change. The legacy system that I'm talking about was people have been using it for 40 plus years, I think. And they're used to doing something, and it was it's not to take anything away from it, it's custom made for them. So it's doing a lot of stuff that you can't buy off the shelf, and showing them a new system which cannot do all these fancy stuff right out of the box is quite a problem. And then you get the resistance to change. But showing them how you handle it is to show them what new features the software has, how it can make their life easier, with all the new tools at their disposal. And obviously a lot of hand-holding does the trick to bring about the shift in thinking.
Mm-hmm. And then Matthew, from your perspective, and you are quite advanced with your I guess your integration and upgrading of legacy systems. I mean, the majority of our systems, my understanding is that they've already been upgraded. But strategies for managing sort of legacy systems from your end?
The integration to I went looking at every single one of those questions. They're all actually entwined. Every single one of those, like I said, I've got a good FD who invests with me and gives me the correct investment side. My resistance to change, as soon as I've created an SME, I know most people call it here, we call them SME, which is subject matter experts. If I get buy-in from those people, integration, I don't have a problem with any integration of legacy systems, because looking at the security side, we've always we're up to date on every bit of technology. If we have old machines, we put in the budget that they go to the latest version of Windows, and the integration's already there. So all the lab equipment is linked, all the equipment on the shop floor is linked. So if you do your security side of it, then we don't have any problems. Integrations, I know it said 43%. We have no problems with business objects and APIs to any of that. So if I was answering those questions, that integration to the legacy systems, I don't have a problem, because if I've kept the legacy systems up to date, to communicate, I do not have a problem at all. So they're all linked. Every single one of them is linked, and you can't just say, well, 43% people don't do that, because you have to have done all 4 or 5 of those to make it go through.
And then in terms of addressing the skills gap specifically, and Mario, I'm going to ask you the same question, because you obviously have a very different operating environment in South Africa compared to Mark in the UK. But how are you addressing the skills gap that a lot of the manufacturers are concerned about and struggling with? Is it just a case of extensive training? I mean, how are you guys sort of addressing that?
Yeah, it's just upskilling people, and it's hiring new people. Yeah, that's about it. Just we do internal training as well, but try to mitigate that as best we can.
Sure.
We take 10 apprentices on a year who just go permanently to college, and we will take graduates on for the higher skilled stuff. on the integration. So when it comes to the skills, we know we've got to be taking on, because those skills are short. Most people in the UK now go to university, so we're trying to get in early to all these colleges and get the people in. So we've got the apprentices coming in. But the last time we went to the exhibition in the NEC, people are now bringing in more and more robots. It was full of robots last year. 4 years ago, when they did the same show, you never saw one. Every stand has now got a robot. That when we're going to exhibitions, so that's the future. It's coming. So there is a skill shortage, and when you talk to them on the stands, they say, "Well, why have you done it?" And they go, "Well, because we know there's a shortage of people in CNC machines turning." So we've looked at it and taken apprentices on, because not everybody wants to come out of university in the UK with 40,000-50,000 pounds worth of debt anymore. So the market is changing now, where before you couldn't get the skills yet because they were all going off to university.
Very interesting trend, right?
Yeah.
Right. So we're starting to head towards the sort of the end of the panel discussion, but I thought it would be great to hear from both of you, just your future outlook. So taking a look at the roadmap for the next 2 to 3 years, given the fact that from a developmental perspective and implementation perspective, both of you are at very different stages, but what does that roadmap look like over the next 2 to 3 years? Does sustainability feature, elaborate a bit on your vision, I guess, for your organization and for the industry over the foreseeable future? Mario, if you can start off with, and then we can end with Mark.
Yes. Like I said, we've got a custom ERP system that I was a big part of in Booster, and also in Belgium is another custom ERP system. So roadmap for the next 2-3 years is moving to Syspro, and also getting other software aligned between our two branches, or between the two companies. The one is Winchell, and other one is the nesting software and the Troom software, and to get everything talking, but to have a centralized repository for everything. From there, I think we will start looking at more advanced technologies like AI and how we can leverage the data that we already have. But for the immediate future, it's just to get everything and everyone on the new ERP system. That will also help with sustainability, because as you know, with custom ERP systems, you are bound to a single individual or a company that is not. It's dangerous for the companies. Where with a company like Syspro or a company like any big ERP SAP or something, you future-proof your technology and your future in the technology sector.
Sure. Mark?
Yeah, sustainability is, like you said, Syspro is, we've already gone through 3 upgrades, had no problems with it. We just put it onto another box, test every transaction we do, and it's gone smooth all the time. And that is because they've invested in time on the business object side of it. It's made that integration so easier for you to start upgrade. Most people, legacy systems, you're stuck there for forever and a day, and that's why people then go and look for a new computer system, and that's when all the changes come in. With Syspro and sustainability side of it, it is easier, and they've made it they've looked at why people change computer systems, and it goes, well, because people can't change it. They've not been like that. They've been open. They've looked at what the trends are going to be, and they've made it a lot easier to do. So our future roadmap, the business, remember, we've gone from 20 to 140 million. We're going to go, the thing is, we're going to grow again to 200 million, and then we're even further over the next couple of years. And I know the business will just work on the platforms we've got installed.
That's amazing. It's amazing growth as well. And then the final parting question, Murray, again, we'll start with you and then sort of move over to Mark. But if you were to give advice, to companies starting this digital transformation journey, I mean, what would that be? If you had the ability to put a billboard up, with one, particular piece of advice, for new companies or for companies rather starting with their digital transformation journey, sort of what would that be, Mario?
Definitely to start small instead of trying to implement everything at once with a big bang approach, where normally you would run into time constraints, and then people get frustrated. And as soon as you lose the people, the battle is halfway lost. So start small and give them small wins and introduce them to the technology in small batches, which you can roll out quickly. And as soon as you do that, you win the people and future-proof any new development that comes out. And during that, and if you've got that, then you buy yourself time where you can say, okay, it's proven with the small updates that is coming out, but the big update will take some more time, and then you've got that.
Brilliant. Mark?
Yeah, I agree with everything he said. You start small, do the little wins, but you've got to have the communications. I don't know what you call it in South Africa, either a dealer or a distributor or a channel partner. You've got to talk to them. They've got to be able to show you what's available in Syspro. So if you had a good partner to work with, that's what you really want. I don't know what it's called in South Africa, but if you've got a good dealer or a distributor, then the communication, it's key. It's key for you going to implement it as well. So you've got to get buy-ins from outside, and you've got to get that knowledge, and that knowledge has got to be transferred to your subject matter experts within your company. So that's what it is. Communications is key.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Gentlemen, I want to thank you for your incredible insight today. It's been a really fruitful discussion. We miss Matthew, but we have plenty of insight coming from the two of you. So thank you so much, Mario, Mark. And with that, I'm going to hand back to Herman to take us to the closure.
Thank you very much. And that brings us to the end of today's session. Thank you for sticking with us. Indrek, thank you for your time. Thank you for talking us through the survey that you guys conducted. I would say you made us all feel a little bit smarter and a little bit more aware of just how much work we have ahead of us. And I think personally, if there's one thing I've learned today, it's that modern manufacturing might be complex, but it's definitely not impossible. And between, well, understanding from Mark and Mario is just with the right people, the right system, and the willingness to evolve, manufacturers can not only survive, but also lead. So to our guest speakers, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your experience. And for everybody online, thank you for joining us on this call. And if you want to see a little bit more, the discussion will continue on LinkedIn, and the recording will be emailed out. So please feel free to reach out at any point. So on behalf of all of us here today, thank you for your time and thank you for engaging. Till next time. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thank you.